Hello there, welcome back to another review. Today I'm going to be talking about another cult classic horror, like one of my all-time favourites of all time, another one that I saw late on TV one night, and that is Basket Case. I've got the trilogy here on Blu-ray, but we're going to be talking about the original Basket Case. Again, like with the Turtles films, hopefully I will get round to discussing the sequels and getting through the whole trilogy, but we'll just be looking at the original Basket Case today. Like I say, I saw it late one night on TV. It was another one of them films that I had no clue. I mean, this is years and years and years ago. Soon become an instant favourite of mine straight away the first time I saw it. Just loved the originality of it. But we'll be getting into that today. Just Basket Case. If you've never seen this film and you like old school horror, check it out. That's all I need to say. Made in 1982 and directed by Frank Henenlotter, film was made for around, I think, $35,000. So it was done very much on the cheap. It was done, and this is what I'm saying. There's a lot of this is what's sort of lacking with filmmaking today's. There's not sort of these low budget features so much being made. I mean, I know there's still low budget films, but none. I always have a sense. I mean, my favourite sort of horror decade was sort of the 80s, because they were just having so much fun with these films in the 80s, so much imagination, coming from directors and film writers and things like that. But this was a film that really much got its audience on home video. This was sort of where it found its cult status and went on to become sort of a cult favourite and gaining popularity over the time. As mentioned, I love horror films like this, much like Society, Reanimator, etc., that really took they break the mold in regards to shock value and taking a different approach to usually serial killer slasher type films, which I do love as well. But I love it when there's something new there, when there's something fresh, and so many horror films to get through that I want to talk about, but I'm just starting with sort of some of the obvious ones that I love, that are sort of like favourites of mine. Often putting, like I say, different, sometimes, different intelligent spins on what a horror film should be. It's a very seedy film, I would say, Basket Case, in the way it shows and presents New York, dirty atmosphere, much like if you think of films sort of like French Connection, Midnight Cowboy. New York in this film, as I'd say, it's a very dirty, sleazy, real place that these characters inhabit in this movie. Regardless of all the blood and gore in the movie, there is actually a story here. It's not, again, like a lot of films that I think sometimes people miss the point of horror completely sometimes when they just see the blood and the guts and the gore and they're not paying attention to a story that's being told, or they just, if you took the blood and guts out of a film, if you look at the story, if you look at let's say what is actually being told, what is actually going on with the plot, there's the story that is actually really interesting. One that does have some backing and reasoning to it. It's not just mindless serial killings, mindless people getting butchered up or anything like that. Which is why I think you like Dwayne Bradley and you like Belial as well. You sort of, especially when the sequels sort of, from 2 onwards, it's Dwayne Bradley, you sort of sympathise with the pair of them, which is, you do sort of, although, like I say, the film can be viewed as silly, you do start sort of understanding why they're doing what they're doing, or like understanding, sort of why they're feeling the way they do. So the film opens with like this Dr. Liv Lander, I believe, if I recall, if my memory's that good. He's sort of being terrorised and murdered, and he gets murdered at his home, basically. So there's, phone line gets cut, something's going on, somebody's outside his house, somebody wants him dead, right? Then we cut to Dwayne Bradley carrying like our main character, carrying a basket down the dirty streets of New York City. And just basket, you don't know what's in the basket. The film's called Basket Case, what's in the basket? And that's a quote that runs through this. People keep saying, what's in the basket? So he checks into a hotel and all seems fine until he goes to get some food. So all's fine, he's checked into his room, we have no idea who this character is, what's going on. He gets some food and he comes back with like cheeseburgers and things like that, and he starts sort of dropping them in the basket, and whatever's in there is like scoffing them up, like just absolutely mad. The basket's sort of rocking, someone's munching on all these like cheeseburgers and that. You're not even sure what this is. And he's talking to it as well. He's talking to something in the basket. You have no idea. Again, if you don't want to know, I won't talk about the plot inside out, but I'm just like sort of discussing the premise of the film. So he's talking, and you have no idea what or who this thing is in the basket at all. We find out that he has a file that he belonged to the doctor that was murdered at the start. So you're thinking, okay, was it him that murdered the doctor at the start? And we also learn whatever is in the basket can talk to him as well telepathically. When he's trying to get some sleep, he's sort of answering what's in the basket, but you're not hearing that what's in the basket talk. So it's sort of just talking to him through his head, through his mind. They have like sort of a shining thing going on, where sort of Belial can talk to him. Basically, the next day, Dwayne and his basket go to Dr. Needleman's office, where he reveals like you see a huge scar down Dwayne's side, and it's at night when they go back. We get the reveal of Belial, which I absolutely love the way they reveal him. I absolutely love it because the doctor, he knows something's going to happen, and the more is divulged in the plot and the story as it goes on. But this doctor, he knows something's going to happen. He knows who Dwayne is. He remembers. And he sort of barricades himself in the office, and he goes into this dark room, and you have no idea where it's coming. He just flicks the light on, and Belial's sort of there, like sort of on the wall, right by the door frame. It's just beautifully done, really beautifully done. Even now when I watch it, it still takes me by surprise, even though sort of I know it's coming, but it still does sometimes. I think, oh, that's so awesome the way it's done. So he's barricading himself in, and basically, Belial is sort of Dwayne's deformed brother that was joined to Dwayne at birth. They were joined together. And then basically they got removed. They got separated from each other against their will. Is basically what happened. That's the premise of the film. And there's also a subplot of Dwayne trying to date this receptionist, which Belial goes so mad and jealous, and he goes berserk at one point and starts trashing the room. He goes absolutely berserk. So Dwayne's gone on a date. He starts trashing the room. I absolutely love the flashback sequence as well, which I think really does, again, when I talk about caring for these characters, or even just understanding Dwayne and Belial, the flashback scene, the sequence in this really does work. I think without the flashback sequence, without sort of just leaving it as it is, like an older Dwayne, I think the film would have missed out on a lot of sort of the depth of it. I think putting the flashback sequence like to when they did get removed, when they did get separated, I think that definitely added something to this. It definitely added, dare I say, more emotion to the characters, definitely a bit more invested in there. So I say he goes, and then it really does give the film some depth. You see the operation, you see them removing Belial, and it really does give the film depth and why they want to, like, you understand why they want to track and kill these doctors. Not you're totally sympathising with them. It's not like you totally, but you do understand they didn't want to be separated. They were quite happy the way they were. It really say, and because they just view Belial as a monster, they view Belial as a freak, and Dwayne never viewed him as that. Dwayne viewed him as part of him, and Belial and that. And when they remove Belial, it's really well done. They even end up killing their own dad because the dad their mum died during the birth, and he holds sort of Belial responsible. So they end up killing him as well. And as I say, they blame Belial for that. So the film ending involves Belial attempting to basically, without skipping like a lot of the film's like sort of plot. I mean, I've given you sort of a rough idea, but the film ends the way it's sort of the climax of the film is Belial, Dwayne is, like I say, sort of is and isn't sort of dating this receptionist, and then basically Belial pays her a visit and attempts to basically sort of rape her in her sleep, as he's so jealous that Dwayne's out dating and living his life, and Belial's like, well, I don't get to do that, so he just basically goes to sort of sexually assault her. It ends with the two brothers. They sort of end up fighting, and eventually they fall out the window. At one point, Belial even picks up Dwayne by his testicles and just sort of holds him up, I might add. So look out for that. But because they can sort of they have like this telepathic link. Like Dwayne can sense sometimes what he's doing. Dwayne can sense sometimes where Belial is, and sort of he knows, so he goes to rescue and help Sharon, and yeah, so that's it. It ends with them sort of falling out this window. Obviously, the film, like, the editing is a bit choppy in places, but I did read somewhere that the director didn't have much to do with sort of the post-direction side of things. I think he didn't pretty much have a lot to do or say with the editing and side and things like that. Kevin Van Hentenryck plays the part of Dwayne perfectly. He absolutely nails it completely. He is absolutely perfect for the role of Dwayne Bradley. Very creepy, but at the same time he's very polite. He's very naive. You know, they don't think they're doing anything wrong. They just want justice. They didn't want this to happen to them. But at the same time, the brothers fight. They fall out. They argue. And that creates a very interesting dynamic, especially late, like in the sequels as well, which I think really do improve. I mean, Basket Case the original you can't not, but I think the sequels are just as valid as well. I think they're excellent sequels. The guy who plays the hotel owner, I can't remember his name, or I don't know his name, but he's absolutely amazing in this as well. I think he plays the part perfectly. They all play the part. Everybody in this film plays the part perfectly in the best way possible, and they all do fit in to the Basket Case sort of universe. Belial is largely a combination of like a puppet, stop motion, of course, and sometimes if it's just you're seeing things through Belial's point of view, it's somebody in a pair of gloves when you only see his hands, which all just adds to the fun of the film. You don't, you know, like I'm not bashing films nowadays, but when something is just revealed straight away throughout the whole movie and it's just CGI, it just doesn't add any charm for me. It lacks that not emotional, but it just doesn't ground it a bit when you're just looking you're just looking at a load of digital imagery. It just doesn't do much for me like that. As mentioned, the film is very seedy in the way it treats New York, but not cheap or seedy like in the way it treats its subject matter, which is interesting. You know, like I say, New York's portrayed very seedy in this, but the subject matter isn't. You know, there's some real pathos here between the two brothers, and I love movies like this that offer something else with all the gore, mess, and fake blood and shock value. In many ways, the Bradley brothers are the killers of the movie. But they're sort of like the victims at the same time. Like, even though they're killing these people that separated them, they are the killers. They are the one doing these murders and that. And but you do get a feeling they are victims. So like I said, there is an element of you just sort of understand sometimes why they feel the way they do. To me, Basket Case is a complete classic. I think everybody should watch Basket Case. It's a cheap film for sure, but it is a fun one. It is a really good, fun horror film. Interesting, disturbing, funny in places, well acted, I would say, from back in the day. Even though I know the director doesn't always view his work as horror, I think he's like sort of more exploitation. That's how he sort of views his films. If you ignored sort of some of the dated monster effects in this, which I think add to the whole charm of it, I think you'll have a great time with Basket Case. So if you've never seen it, if you've never seen the original Basket Case, just make sure you check it out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.